Turn 7, August 11th through the 20th, post-Allied movement. So we rolled an 11 during the airpoint phase, which gave us 8 airpoints to spend this turn, the most you can get in a single turn in the first 8 turns. So we spent 2 dominating air zones 1 and 6. And we're getting ready to resolve combat, and I'm planning to spend another 4 in the north for 2 shifts in ground support, as you can see, and 1 in the south, leaving us 1 that we can still spend during the German half of the turn if needed. So here we are after the first 4 attacks. I decided to grab some extra dice to be able to show you these kind of strange results, lots of high doubles. We started here, attacking with a stack of 4 full-strength US units, 2 infantry divisions, and both airborne divisions. And we were targeting a full-strength German infantry division in open terrain across a small river. With ground support, we got a D2R2 result, destroying the defending unit, and we advanced both airborne divisions across the small river. Then over here, we were attacking with 2 stacks of 3 full-strength US infantry divisions, each both across a small river, and our target was open terrain defended by a full-strength Fallschirmjäger division. With ground support, we got an A1D1 result, and you can see the results, the step losses applied. Next, down here, we were attacking this hex concentrically from here and here. Over here we had a stack of both of our 8-strength infantry divisions and 2 6-strength units. And then in this stack we had all 4 of our full-strength US armored divisions. And with ground support on the 7-1, we rolled 2 6s, which got us a D4R3 result, destroying both defending units of full-strength Fallschirmjäger division and reduced Panzer division. We decided to bring both 6-strength infantry units into the target hex, and then make a multi-hex advance with our stack of US armor all the way out to this position, free of enemy zones of control, so that we can instead spend our last remaining air point during our exploitation phase of this turn to conduct an overrun here, instead of saving it for the German half of the turn. I didn't see this opportunity before. Then finally, down here we resolved an attack here, defended, open terrain defended by 2 full-strength German units, an infantry division and Fallschirmjäger division, and we were attacking the stack of 4 units from here, 3 of which were armored divisions, and then a stack of units here. And this stack was halved for the small river. So we rolled a 10 with ground support on the 6-1, which was a D2R3 result. So each of the defending units took a step loss and retreated all the way to 2. We advanced the armored divisions. Would have liked to have brought maybe 1 over here, but it would have placed it out of supply. Should have probably moved this up further. I wasn't sure if... Anyway, so let's go ahead and resolve combat in the south. You might notice a change in sound quality, hopefully for the better. I switched to an external mic to try to cut down on some of that background noise, although it's kind of quiet in the house right now. So I went ahead and rolled for our attack down here. We were targeting this full-strength German infantry division in rough terrain. From here and here. That rounded up to the 3-1, and we used ground support for 2 right shifts in a dominated zone, and rolled a 6 on the 5-1, which was a D1R1 result. So this unit takes a step loss, and will retreat a hex along the road. And we may advance, and there are some exploit-capable units that could even advance up to this hex. So we advanced an infantry division from each of our stacks and brought both Free French armored divisions down to this beach. So that ends the combat phase. Next is the exploitation phase. we'll be conducting an overrun with this stack of 4 full-strength U.S. armored divisions, a total combined attack strength of 37, and they each have a movement allowance of 8. So we're paying 2 up front for the overrun, moving 3, 4, 5, 6 for the enemy zone of control. And our target, there's a slight change in plan, instead of this stack will be this stack. So we'll go ahead and move into position and first reveal the defending units. A combined defensive strength of 11 in open terrain. So that's 3-1, and we're spending our last point, air point, for ground support, 2 shifts in a dominated zone, so we're rolling on the 5-1. And we roll an 11. 11 on the 5-1 is a D3, R3. Both defending units are eliminated. All right, so we may advance. 2 of the 4 attacking units have advanced into the target hex, including the 10 strength armored division. Next is the supply phase, and as it stands, all of our units are still in supply. Supply lines through here and here, maybe here, are a bit vulnerable, but I'm not too concerned about that since supply is only checked during your friendly supply phase, which comes after movement and combat. Here we are during the German combat phase. We resolved 2 attacks, first here. On the 3-1 against 2 full-strength armored divisions, we rolled a 7, which was an A1, D1, R1 result, but the A1 was in brackets, so as the Germans we were able to ignore the attacker's step loss. One of the 2 defending units took a step loss, and both retreated to join with the 2 armored divisions in this hex within stacking restrictions. We then advanced one of the attacking stacks. Then we resolved a concentric attack over here on the 2-1, rolling a 10, which was a D2, R1 result, and our target was 2 full-strength airborne divisions, which each took a step loss, and one was destroyed as they retreated across the small river to join with the other 2 infantry divisions here. And then we advanced with this panzer division. One of the interesting things is that we still have 8 airdrops available, but we have no airborne divisions in either the England or Mediterranean boxes. But now that we have our first destroyed airborne division, we can spend a replacement point to place it back in the box and then redeploy during another airdrop phase, perhaps when we attempt to create this last remaining beach port. We'll see. Skipping ahead to the end of the Allied half of game turn 8, August 21st through the 30th. And yes, the lack of beach ports and functional real ports in the north was a bit of an issue this turn. Cherbourg is not yet functional until turn 9, and we had to remove the 3 beach port markers at the end of turn 7. Luckily, Cherbourg still functions as a supply source, but not for attack supply until it's functional. We did have 1 beach port marker remaining, so I went ahead and used it to land a new assault force of 2 Canadian divisions into this British-occupied beach, Utah Beach, without having to roll for the invasion attack since the British unit was a non-airborne unit. And then we used that beach port to bring attack supply to one of the US HQs to be able to support attacks up and down the line here. And I went ahead and spent one of our 6 emergency attacks here in the south to engage these 3 Commonwealth armored divisions, destroying the 2 reduced German units in open terrain and advancing multiple hexes into Tours. Don't know if it was wasteful, but I feel like we're kind of falling behind here, and with the lack of ports to be able to activate those HQs, I figured why not. We still have 5 remaining. I hope I don't have to spend any more, at least not till the last part of the game. And hopefully by then we would have taken control of Le Havre and hopefully rolled lower than we did for Cherbourg. So the total damage up here, 10 destroyed German units. And two losses inflicted on the Allies. Let's take a look at Marseille. So we resolved one attack with ground support for 2 right shifts in a dominated zone and got a D2R2 result. The full-strength Panzer Division that was defending there in the rough in this hex took a step loss, and the static division there was destroyed. This infantry division was already reduced. The 2 surviving units retreated northward through the rough towards a small river, allowing the 2 Free French armored divisions to make a multi-hex advance, one into Marseille and one to pursue those units. And we rolled a 3 for Marseille, so that will gain functionality at the beginning of turn 11, but will still act as a supply source even after these 2 beachport markers are removed at the end of this turn. But we'll have the same situation where we're unable to bring attack supply to our HQs here in the south, but I don't think I want to waste emergency attacks down here. We'll see what happens. After the Allied half of game turn 9, September 1st through the 10th, and this was an exciting turn, much better now that we have both Beachport 6 as well as a functional Cherbourg. So with those 2, we were able to, thanks to these trucks, bring attack supply both to the British HQ as well as one of the 2 US HQs, flipping them to their attack side. I guess I should flip them back now that it's the German half of the turn. And we were able to pull off 3 consecutive attacks with the stack of 2 full-strength British armored divisions. First an overrun during the movement phase to destroy the Sloan reserve infantry division, then a multi-hex advance to join in an attack here, just outside of Orléans, to destroy another 3 steps of German infantry division. And it was a concentric attack with the Polish armored division on the other side, a multi-hex advance to stack all 3 units together, and then later on, during the exploitation, conduct another overrun since they were not in an enemy zone of control and within range, having enough movement points, that is, to destroy the surviving full-strength Luftwaffe division. After kind of a weak attack here, even with ground support and 2 right shifts, there was an A2D1 result. So that, after another multi-hex advance, left us just outside of Paris. So we're adjacent, just south of the city, still on this side of the Seine. We could have advanced all the way into this hex, across the river into the forest, but that would have left us out of range for supply. And you can see that the stack of US armored divisions is now adjacent to southern part of Paris as well. After a pretty massive attack here with ground support and 3 stacks of 4 units each, targeting a fairly large stack of German units in open terrain, but without having to deal with the small river. And you can see that we've ignored all the units that have lined up along this river and have instead focused on this point, as well as this up here to Técrouan. We went ahead and spent another airdrop. We're now at 7 to land the 17th U.S. Airborne Division back here behind the German line on the other side of the Seine, in open terrain, rolling a 6 on landing to land safely intact, and then had 2 pretty large stacks attacking across the Seine as well. And we used ground support there. So we finally have made it across the Seine. We're going to have to focus, I think, on gaining control of Le Havre. The port situation's bad. This beachport marker goes away at the end of turn 14. So hopefully we'll have Le Havre by then, although it's cutting it close because not only do we have to take it, we still have to roll to determine functionality, or when it becomes functional. But we're starting to wrap around here and here. It's making it costly for especially these units to be able to make it anywhere really safe. So it might work out, and the total damage here in the north was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 destroyed German units. I'm a little concerned. I know that I play the defending side pretty poorly in general. I find it more challenging personally. But things are, I don't think, looking so well. On the other hand, at this point, I'm guessing we should have already taken Paris. That hasn't happened, so we'll see. let's take a look at the south. Here's a quick look at things around Marseille. I debated spending an air point to dominate Air Zone 6, mainly to slow down the German units, but ultimately decided against it because we have no functional rail port or any more beach ports. Also because we'd like to make our way up north as well, and they're kind of slowing us down. So in the meantime, we've positioned ourselves to try to at least force German units to surrender, but more likely they'll just retreat across the small river through the rough onto that road and head north as quickly as possible. Marseille becomes functional in a couple of turns on turn 11. And until then, we need to keep an eye, I think, at least until then, on our supply line back to Marseille. And we know that there are German reinforcements that have been coming towards us along this road. They're entering at Hex E, which is just outside of Béziers, past Montpellier. And I have not studied the reinforcement schedule, but I assume that more will be coming. And hopefully by then we'll be able to bring attack supply to our HQs in the area. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that we'll be able to make good use of these Allied units eventually, probably towards the latter half of the game, to try to gain those southernmost VP hexes. We'll see. This is mid-Allied combat on turn 10, September 11th through the 20th. We've resolved our first attack, and I've rolled for the second, and I decided to hit the record button. So up here, what happened first is we attacked Le Havre with a stack of 4 U.S. infantry divisions. And defending here were 3 German static divisions in the fortification, in the forest, and we used ground support for 2 right shifts in dominated Zone 1 and managed to eliminate just 2 of the 3 units. Then we rolled an 8 for our second attack here. This is also using ground support for 2 right shifts in dominated Zone 2. And we're attacking from 3 adjacent hexes. And defending here is a total defensive strength of 6. 2 of the attacking stacks are attacking across the river, so their attack strengths are halved. We have 12 from here, another 12 from here, halved to a total of 6 from each hex, plus 9. That was on the 4-to-1, 2 right shifts up to the 6-to-1, and 8 on the 6-to-1 was a D2R2 result, and the defending units are each single step units, so these 2 are destroyed as well. And now we have the option to advance after combat. We can make a multi-hex advance with our exploit capable unit. 1, 2, we'll go ahead and do this because we have an attack lined up here as well. And then we'll move units into this hex. We'll advance this stack and one of these 2 units. The third attack was resolved off camera, but we managed a D2R2 with ground support. We were attacking from 2 hexes across the river, which halved our attack strength, and in the target hex were 2 full-strength German infantry divisions. And we had another unit back here from the last attack to exert zones of control on the defender's retreat path. So 1 unit was destroyed, and the other was reduced and brought back here. We made a multi-hex advance with the exploit-capable units, bringing 3 armored units here, the Free French Armored Division here, 1 here along with an infantry unit across the river. Then we rolled a 9 against this stack here, again using ground support. That's an Air Zone 2, just barely. Rounded down to a 1-to-1, 2 right shifts to the 3-to-1. A 9 on the 3-to-1 is a D2R2. So let's go ahead and apply these results. So we're applying step loss to the unit with the highest defense strength, which is this 2-step unit. And we'll go ahead and apply the second to that unit as well, destroying it. So this unit remains and will retreat 2 hexes away from the attacking units towards friendly supply source. And now we have a whole stack of exploit capable units that can advance multiple hexes. I think we'll move into this. So let's see. Here we are at the end of the Allied combat phase. We've advanced after combat, resolved a few more attacks, but without ground support since we've already spent all of our air points for the turn. Here we could not advance across the small river through the forest without placing ourselves just outside of the supply range, which is in movement points of the British HQ. So instead what we've done is use the road to advance through the forest and then move 2 units to stack out here in open terrain along on this side of the small river. This down here did not go so well. We were on the 3-1, but we rolled a 3, which was an A2 result. So we applied the losses to 2 of our 3 6-strength British infantry divisions in this hex. Down here it was an A1-D1 exchange, and here we easily destroyed another German static division, advancing units forward from Huan. Alright, here's the final update of part 2 of my playthrough of the Mighty Endeavour, the campaign game, which I'm far from finishing, but still hoping to do so, believe it or not, even though it's getting pretty embarrassing at this point. But before I explain to you what's happened since the last clip and my plans for resurrecting the playthrough and finishing it, I should apologize for having taken so long to post this or any kind of update, and if you've posted any comments since around Thanksgiving, I probably haven't read them yet. It was a serious break, but now that we're in 2016, I'm ready to start again. So I think it was in the middle of turn 10 when I decided to, take a short break, what was supposed to be a short break for the holidays, end of the year stuff, but of course ended up being much longer by weeks, if not months. But that was a much needed break. I didn't realize it at the time. I took some days off from work and just was enjoying doing end of the year related stuff and also gaming off camera, to be honest. During that time I also rearranged the room a bit to allow access up to the attic, which is right behind me in this room, so what you don't see is a big ladder and tools and stuff, which are still there. And that went smoothly. I can move the desk around without upsetting any of the counters just fine. So the plan was to pick up where I left off shortly after. But during that project and all the commotion of going in and out of the room, one of these guys, these cats, broke in. And usually when I'm around I can catch him pretty quickly and kick him back out, but this time around I was not home. So I came home to find that my cat had played a few turns of his own. And what I usually try to do at that point is, because it happens, you can't avoid it, it's to try to go through previous footage frame by frame and, you know, in slow motion, try to figure out where all the pieces were and try to reset the game and pick up where I left off. But I've done it before with smaller games, smaller maps, fewer pieces. This time around I wasn't really sure. I think I ended up making a bigger mess. Moving pieces that were just fine, things like that. It's hard to keep track when you have stacks and stuff. So I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, but I ended up looking through the scenarios and finding one that started on turn 10, where I left off. And it covers turn 10 through the end of the game, starting on September 11th, 1944. There's also another slightly longer scenario that starts on turn 6, right after the landings on August 1st. Unfortunately, there's no scenario that just covers the first third, which I think would be cool too. But anyway, we're going to do that, kind of hit a historical reset button of sorts, and we'll get to, you know, take a different path than what we've been taking so far and see how that goes. So I'm not, totally devastated or anything. It happens, it's just a game. But I would like to at least try to patch together a full campaign gameplay experience, and I think I can still manage to do that, even though it's taking me ridiculously long to get the videos up. And the goal is to really just finish the game and move on to the next project. I have lots of games lined up, and I'm hoping to be able to share them here with you. Here we are after the Allied combat phase of turn 11, September 21st through the 30th. Note to self, Germans defending in forts can ignore any retreat results. So, we received 5 air points, which I decided to save to use during combat. We've spent 4 already, and have 1 remaining, which we very well may be using during the German half of the turn. Started off resolving the attack here at Boulogne-sur-Mer, where there were 2 out-of-supply static divisions defending in the fortification. 1 had previously moved over from Calais. We spent an air point and managed to inflict 2 defender losses, eliminating both defending units, and made a multi-hex advance with this reduced Polish armored division from the beach port. And we rolled a 3 for Boulogne-sur-Mer for turn 14. Then we resolved attacks here around the estuary hexes of Antwerp, starting off here in open terrain with 2 reduced Canadian infantry divisions. 1 was attacking across a small river, and a reduced British airborne division. Again, defending here were 2 out-of-supply static divisions. We spent another air point, and I think it was a D1R1, eliminating both units and advanced the unit across the river. Then we resolved an attack here in the wetlands, also an estuary hex where there were 2 units defending, 2 out-of-supply units. Total defensive strength of half of 5. We used an air point and managed to, I think it was an A1, D1, R1, eliminating both defending units since we were exerting zones of control, and this hex side is impassable. There's no bridge across the sea line hex side. And we apply the step loss to our full strength airborne division. Attack strength of 6, and advance the stack across the bridge. Our attack strength was halved due to the wetlands. Then we resolved an attack here, just regular open terrain, attacking also with a couple of units across the small river. No air points needed there, eliminating the out-of-supply German infantry division with a defensive strength of 3, 1-step unit. And that managed to clear all the estuary hexes. So Antwerp, if I'm doing this right, is on schedule to become functional in turn 14, along with Boulogne-sur-Mer. Then we resolved an attack down here, probably unwise, but we were kind of limited by attack supply considerations. So we brought in as much as we could here to attack the stack in Metz. Fortification, victory point hex. Oh, by the way, this was victory point hex as well. Value 1, and entry point B. So we didn't do so well down here, even with the air point. And I think it was an A2D1. So no retreat results to take into account. So the defender loss was to the their full strength Panzer Grenadier Division, and we applied a loss to each of our strongest units, the 10 strength armored divisions, flipping them both. 1 here is now reduced all by itself, but across the small river from the German units, but still quite vulnerable. We'll see what happens. And if we need to use our remaining air point during the German half of the turn. One last thing to note is that we've built up a couple of larger US stacks here of infantry divisions, as well as a stack of 3 exploit-capable units in the back, 2 reduced and 1 full-strength US Armored Division. Unfortunately, not currently within range of a US attack HQ, but there is a US HQ here that is now in supply from either Beachport 6 or Cherbourg. They're all connected by trucks via roads. So hopefully we'll be seeing some action finally from these US units in the north in the next turn. Alright, here we are in game turn 12. This is October 1st through the 15th. We just got done with the Allied airdrop phase, so doing things a little differently this time. Updating earlier than I usually do, so we're getting ready to do movement and then combat. But we received 4 air points to spend, and I spent 1 to dominate Air Zone 3 so that the other 3 could be used for 2 shifts for air support instead of 1, but also in this area, but also so that we could airdrop units. So we had 6 airdrops remaining, and both of our 6-strength US Airborne divisions were still in the England box as of setup of this scenario. So we spent 2 to drop both units together in this hex, this Eindhoven hex, open terrain, right in front of the nearest bridge here. So we rolled a 1 and a 4, mixed results. The 101st landed intact, the 82nd took a step loss, but they're now there and ready to engage in combat. We had previously shipped our 4-strength, slightly weaker airborne division to Beachport 6, mainly because we could. There were no other units in the box at the time. Don't know if that was a mistake, but anyway, so we're getting ready to move units. I've already announced our attack HQs, and this time we've created 3. We may have been able to do so in the last turn, I'm not sure. You have to kind of leave it set up so that you can go ahead and flip your attack HQ before movement. So I don't think we were quite set up because I wasn't really planning on creating Beachport 6. It's kind of a whim. Anyway, that was too bad, but now we have 3. 1 from Beachport 6, 1 from Cherbourg, and 1 from Marseille. So our British HQ here from either Beachport 6 or Cherbourg. And then we have a US attack HQ here in Liège, I think. And then the other up here, the exploit-capable US attack HQ with a slightly higher movement allowance as well. Not yet really doing anything but moving with the French. So let's see what happens. Alright, so here we are after the Allied player turn. So we've gone ahead and done the movement, combat, exploitation, supply, shipping, and reinforcement replacement phases, and just need to unflip the attack HQs before we move on to the German half of the turn. We had 3 air points remaining and spent them all in combat. We made 4 separate attacks, 1 here, 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 and down here. And they went very well. We rolled, I think, 3 8s and 1 7 on 2d6 on the 4-1 and 5-1 with the help of our air points, which meant no attacker losses in any of these attacks. And we started up here. Defending in that hex were 2 fairly strong German units, a full-strength Fallschirmjäger division, a reduced Panzer division. In open terrain, we were attacking from 4 adjacent hexes with our Commonwealth forces all across a small river. Got 2 right shifts because it's in dominated Zone 3, and we're able to advance units from Antwerp and south of Antwerp across the river. Then we resolved the attack here. We ended up splitting up the 2 airborne divisions and bringing the full-strength unit down here, and 2 US stacks across the river this direction against the full-strength German infantry division in open terrain. Only 1 right shift for air support though, since it's just outside of Zone 3. But nonetheless, we eliminated the unit, advanced one of the 2 stacks across across the river. And then finally we hit this Eindhoven hex, where there was a single step with a defensive strength of 4 in open terrain. And in this attack we had the help of the reduced airborne division, along with a big stack from this side of the river, including both of these U.S. armored divisions, which, as you can see, made multi-hex advance on D2R2 results. We advanced one of the 2 remaining units, both of which were reduced infantry divisions at the time, and spent both of our U.S. replacement points this turn rebuilding those units. Finally, we resolved the attack down here, a big one, 4 big U.S. stacks against 2 full-strength German units. Defending an open terrain, 2 of the 4 stacks were attacking across a small river, and we used our final air point for a shift, although probably could have saved it, went ahead and used it to the 5-1. Rolling a 7 there for a D2R2. On the 4-1, a 7 would have been a D2R1. Wouldn't have made much of a difference, but we were able to inflict a step loss on each of the defending units, eliminate one of the 2 during the retreat, and the surviving unit, this reduced Panzer Grenadier Division, made it back to this hex of fortification across the small river in the forest. We advanced infantry units into our target hex, moved some armored units around during the exploitation phase here, along with the exploit-capable HQ. So now that this unit is here, we're able to trace supply all the way up to this hex from this HQ, which is receiving supply from this truck. This truck's also bringing supply to the Free French HQ, which is here. For trace supply, you can share supply from HQs of different nationalities. And then we have all these units supplied here. I think the Canadian HQ is here. And this HQ is able to barely, but still, bring supply all the way up to these units. And we have a truck here. And let's see. Yeah, a truck here that's supplied by Beachport 6. And also by this truck all the way over to Cherbourg. This is probably all off camera. So that ends the Allied half of the turn. Okay, here we are after the combat phase, and as usual, not quite as planned. First of all, here, we rolled a 3 again against the surviving unit from the Overrun attack of reduced infantry division. We were attacking with 3 of our 4 armored divisions and a stack here across the river. So we got an A1, D1 result. Applied a loss to one of the units with the highest attack strength, which was a 5, since the 3 units from this hex were all reduced. So we applied it to the 5 strength 2-step unit in this stack and advanced the stack across the river, but did not get the retreat result we needed to advance this multiple hexes, 1, 2, to the Eindhoven hex. Then we used the 9 strength 2-step armored division from this hex, along with a stack here, to successfully eliminate the static division in the wetlands across the river. I debated advancing into the target hex, decided to go for it just to gain that ground, even though that does place these units out of supply. Because of the whole terrain situation, it's really hard to get supply up here across the rivers through the wetlands from either of these HQs. And let's see. So those units will not be able to attack in the next turn. Hopefully we can place them back in supply for the combat phase of turn 15. Also, I didn't mention that starting this turn, La Havre was functional. So, not great, but I guess slow progress. We eliminated the unsupplied units defending this hex and made a multi-hex advance here to join the reduced infantry division. And then during the exploitation phase, brought another armored division up here as well. And then down here we, let's see, where were we? Yes, targeting the unit here, two-step infantry division, successfully eliminated the unit. I was thinking originally of making multi-hex advance into one of these fortifications, maybe the victory point hex, but thought, and that's also an entry point A, but that would also place them out of supply, and didn't want to take the risk of doing that intentionally as we did over here quite yet. So far, we had not spent any air points, so very different from what I was expecting. And then we called off the overrun attack during the exploitation phase here, thinking about it during the combat phase. The rule is if you successfully clear a target hex during an overrun attack, then all attacking units must advance, and that would place them out of supply here. So, yeah, supply is preventing us from advancing as much as we'd like. So instead we've used them during the exploitation phase to finish off the units at Metz. So during the combat phase we used an air point for the regular attack, eliminating one of the two units and inflicting a step reduction on the other, ignoring the retreat results. So then we went in for an overrun attack during our exploitation phase, and luckily we were positioned to be able to go for either. So that ends the Allied exploitation phase. All right, so here we are towards the beginning of the Allied movement phase of turn 14, November 1st through the 15th. I've just moved a few units, mainly brought the trucks forward, so we're no longer within range of Cherbourg, but that's fine because at the beginning of the turn both Boulogne-sur-Mer and Antwerp became functional, and we also moved some of the new arrivals as well as the Free French units. And I wanted to stop and give you a quick update so that I can mention a few things before I forget them, as well as maybe give you an overrun example here during the movement phase, or at least talk about it. So, yeah. Again, Boulogne-sur-Mer and Antwerp are now functional, but I've placed the Boulogne-sur-Mer marker face down because there are some special rules when it comes to these ports up here. Antwerp and Rotterdam, if they're functional in Allied control with cleared estuary hexes, they can each support up to 2 attack HQs. However, on any given turn, the Allied player can only use one of Boulogne-sur-Mer, Antwerp, or Rotterdam as a source for attack supply and a place to ship to. So for this turn, of these 2 ports, we've chosen Antwerp. However, Boulogne-sur-Mer can still act as a supply source, a source for trace supply. We don't really need it since we have all these other ports that can provide trace supply. And we also have Beach Port 6 here just next to the port, which is going to be on the board through the end of turn 16, and it's turn 14 right now. So we received 6 air points and spent 2 dominating air zones 3 and 4, which is nice because that's where we have all of the action and all of our potential targets for the combat phase. And with the 4 remaining points, we'll be able to get 2 right shifts with ground support if that's how we choose to use them. As a reminder, German units must spend 1 movement point per road hex instead of 1/2 in these dominated zones, and armor and Panzer Grenadier units, and I believe this applies to both sides, that's how I've been playing it, may not conduct strategic movement through these zones, which is when they are not in enemy zones of control and avoid enemy zones of control to double their movement, which is what I've been doing to bring in the new arrivals. And Also, of course, you can conduct airdrops there in these zones if you have enough airdrops available and airborne units, which we currently do not. We have 4 airdrops available, and you can spend up to 3, I think, per turn. I think there's something else that I'm forgetting when it comes to... It's good to go over these every once in a while in case I'm forgetting stuff. Dominated... Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for the most part. And, what was the other thing? We have this stack of out-of-supply units, as we knew we would. Out-of-supply British infantry divisions, which cannot attack until they're back in supply without spending emergency attacks. And we have 4 at the moment. The Germans have 1. And I think I'll continue to save those in case we need them later on in the game to make a final push here into this cluster of valuable VP hexes across the Rhine. It'll most likely be difficult to bring any kind of supply to units in that area. Their defensive strength and movement allowances are halved and rounded using the system rounding rules. They do not exert a zone of control. If they were exploit capable, they wouldn't be able to use the capability. And units that are out of supply may not absorb replacement points. So we have that to deal with. We'll mainly be working to bring them back into supply so that we can use them. I mean, it's just a couple of units, and we have quite a few up here with their eye on Rotterdam, which will be difficult. It's across the Rhine, city hex, wetlands, all sorts of stuff, although you would take into account the city for the hex terrain. And possibly this, mainly because it's open terrain adjacent to the bridges. And let's see here. We were able to flip 5 attack HQs. So from Le Havre, Beachport 6 in Antwerp, 2 from Antwerp, the British HQ, these 2 US HQs, and this one down here via roads and trucks. They were all within attack supply at the beginning of the turn, and they have yet to move, although I have kind of rearranged the trucks to keep them in attack supply. And then from the south, from Marseille via trucks, finally we flipped the Free French HQ. And I've also already moved to the Free French units, so we'll see some activity down here, most likely here and here, mainly because we can. And we'd like to take Strasbourg and some of these back road hexes across the river, start helping the southern US units out. And that's it for the most part. Now for the overrun that I'm planning. Same stack. One of the units has been rebuilt, I think. Or we spent a replacement point. Yeah, I keep getting those 2 words messed up. I get lots of words messed up. You could see that this was our original target for an overrun the last turn, and since then the Germans have swapped it out for a stronger unit. And it is out of our range for an overrun anyway. 1, 2 for the overrun, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And these units have a movement allowance of 8. So instead we're going to go in this direction. And you can see I have this line here of units, which seems kind of inefficient, possibly, but it's also to negate the enemy zones of control along this road through the forest. And for the overrun, we can actually use road movement for half a movement point each up to our destination, which is the hex adjacent to our target for the overrun. It's just that you cannot use the half movement point for the road to get into, to occupy the target hex. So that would be the other terrain. In this case, yeah, let me make sure. yeah, rough and forest, 2 movement points. Okay. So there's 2 types of terrain. You take into account the terrain that would cost the most to enter. They're equal, so it's 2, and there's no river to deal with. So we would not be able to conduct an overrun into rough terrain or forest terrain across, across the river. But these 2 hexes are free of river hex sides in this direction. So I was thinking of this or this. It's within range. This would be nice because it's adjacent to the Victory Point hex here, which is also a road hex. But this, I think, is what we're going to do instead, because it's an entry point A and will help us surround this point here. So in order to do this, we pay 2 and use the road, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the enemy zone of control, and can attack in this direction, and we'll probably use an air point for 2 right shifts, which we can during the overrun, and hopefully clear the hex, and then that would mean a mandatory advance after combat, at least into this hex. If we have a retreat result, multiple hexes, we could make a multi-hex advance, maybe spread out this way, and then use those units again during the combat phase, and hopefully make sure that they're in supply at the end of the turn. But to do this, we would have to move this unit out first, since the stacking limit is checked not only at the end of our friendly movement phase, but also at the instant of the overrun. So that's when I talk about, that's what I mean when I talk about the order of how you do things. So we'll move this unit out, bring this stack in via the roads, resolve this attack, this overrun attack, using an air point, and take it from there. And since this is in the movement phase, then we'll move other units around if we need to link up the armored units back up to the supply. I might also have to move a US HQ around. I've probably created more attack HQs than needed, but it's good to have that flexibility. Plus, I don't plan on moving them any further than the 4 movement points. That's the thing, if you flip them, for the most part, the movement allowance drops from 8 to 4, unless it's this exploit-capable unit. And I have a unit down here that's unflipped, mainly placed here to be able to provide supply from this truck over here, to units down here, if need be, to the Free French as well, since you may trace supply from HQs of different nationalities. It's just attack supply where it's specific. And I think that's pretty much it, so we'll see what happens. Okay, here we are mid-combat phase, and the plan has changed a bit. So we've resolved movement and started here in the south, successfully eliminating this static division here in the mountain. They got a ×4 to their defensive strength. We got an A1D1 result, inflicting a step reduction to this unit. Then over here we had a stack of Free French units attacking across the small river into forest terrain. With the help of ground support for 2 right shifts, we eliminated the reduced panzer division and advanced a couple of units forward. And they'll be tracing supply from this US HQ. And then here's where we conducted our overrun, and I forgot to mention units, of course, German units defending fortifications can ignore any retreat results. I'm not sure how that affects exploit-capable units' ability to conduct a multi-hex advance, but it didn't come into play since we advanced a single hex. Then up here, we're preparing for an attack against this full-strength German infantry division in open terrain. One of the 2 British stacks will be attacking across the river. But before we resolve this attack, we're going to try this. So we brought in a stack here, attacking across the bridge with the river modifier. this full-strength Panzer division with a defensive strength of 9 in open terrain, and we'll be spending one of our 2 remaining air points for 2 right shifts, and hopefully we'll see how that works out. We'll spend our final air point here to attack this full-strength Panzer Grenadier division in fortification in open terrain, 2 full stacks of US units, to try to force the Germans to have to start to defend this open terrain, although we are still going to be dealing with the rivers in the area. And then I have 2 tentative attacks, one down here to continue with our armored divisions, to try to get into this hex that's adjacent to this victory point hex and road hex, to make it difficult for these units to pull back. And then here to, well, kind of split these forces from the rest of the group up here. Alright, so here we are just after combat. I wasn't going to update here, but we made a multi-hex advance here. I mentioned it down here, rechecked the rules since we had an opportunity and didn't see anything preventing us from being able to do this after destroying the defending unit on a D2. D2R2 here. We destroyed the full-strength German infantry division that was in this hex, open terrain. This did not go well. I think we rolled a 3 there, even with ground support. It was a A2D1. And of course the first loss is applied to the attacker with the highest attack strength. The second one can be to any other unit in the stack, but you have to disperse the losses evenly. We succeeded here in destroying the unit, advanced the stack forward. We also destroyed the unit here and were able to advance. Just check something. There were losses. Yeah, I think we flipped another one of these armored divisions. So heavy losses on the attacking side as well. Having difficulty up here. Things are looking okay. And now the Germans are going to have to deal with the situation here around Cologne. But in the last turn we spent our, was it replacement points? Or is it, yeah, replacement points to rebuild these units. Or is it replace these units? I always get those 2 words confused. Alright, so here we are, trying to wrap up the Allied half of turn 14 still. So that was combat, next was exploitation. Not much happened since you can only do stuff with exploit-capable units that do not begin in an enemy zone of control, and we have most of them up here in the front. So that entailed moving recent arrival from Marseille further up along the road towards the front. Then it was the supply phase, and all of our units are in supply now, though barely, so I removed the out-of-supply marker from those 2 units in that hex. Then came the shipping phase, and this is when you turn to the back of the exclusive rules to the reinforcement charts. So here we have the Allied reinforcement chart, and we turn to turn 14, US Infantry Division, and truck marker, each into the England box. Then something new, remove 1 airborne infantry division. I don't study these charts ahead of time, I'm just taking it as it comes. It's a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting a truck marker, I'm very happy about that. I've already placed those 2 units in the England box, and now I remember reading something about removing units when I was skimming through the rules before beginning the game. So there's a section here on removals, and this is new. A number of units are to be withdrawn from play, as listed on each reinforcement chart. Players can remove any unit of the listed type currently in play, The unit chosen can be at reduced strength or out of supply. The player can choose to remove a dead unit only if no living units of the type are on the map. Removed from play, withdrawn from play, I'm guessing removed from the game, back in the box. I haven't planned accordingly. We do have airborne divisions, a lot of airborne divisions to choose from, but I think I'm going to go with one of these reduced British airborne divisions in this hex. Mainly because they're further away from our main area of focus. So now we resolve the rest of the shipping phase, and just to review, there's no direct shipments. It would say D north or D south here on the reinforcement chart. And that would be in addition to the port capacity, what you ship to each beach or functional real port, which is 1 unit each turn. And a unit for shipping includes any combat unit of any size or type, any HQ or truck marker. And the exception is that an allied armored division counts as 2 units during the invasion multiple unit shipping cycles. They count as 1 unit when a port can accept 1 unit only. Well, we don't have any armored units in either of these boxes, and you're not allowed to ship between the England and Mediterranean boxes. So the units from the England box go to these northern ports, except not to Boulogne-sur-Mer this turn. So we'll go ahead and resolve this, and after that is the reinforcement replacement phase, and this turn the US receives 2 replacement points, the Commonwealth 1, and then we would unflip the attack HQs, and that's it. And then it's the German half of the turn, which is always faster, easier, and not as much combat in my case, although I feel like I should take advantage of German tactical adeptness. Movement, combat, exploitation, supply, and reinforcement replacements, and they don't have HQs to deal with. Post-Allied movement, turn 15, November 16th through the 30th. So we're getting ready to resolve Allied combat. We spent 2 of our 5 air points dominating air zones 3 and 4. And I'm not that familiar with the details, but it seems like we're somewhat, generally speaking, roughly ahead of schedule compared to our historical counterpart as the Allies. Mainly, I think, thanks to the fact that I'm not a very good German player. I don't really play defensively that well, generally speaking. I don't play the offensive side particularly well either, but it's probably what I do better, which isn't saying much. But I think we might be seeing the effects of that. I know one of the things that I'm not doing is taking advantage of the German tactical adeptness, but I just can't bring myself to do it, at least as much as I should. I don't have the guts to roll on the CRT yet. Even a bracketed A2 D1 result doesn't seem, an exchange like that is just not something that I feel like I really want to deal with the way things are, with the Allies already 2 hexes within German borders, 30 miles, with their stack of US armored divisions here and here. So it might be too little too late. I don't know. The Allies would still have to accomplish a lot. There's a lot left for them to do before they can call themselves the victor at the end of the game, full 25 turns. There's no automatic victory condition that would end the game short. And of course, you can call the game early, which is what we might be doing if it's obvious what the outcome is. The historical victory is represented by 41 of the available victory points, total victory points, 40, which are 48 victory points. It says 47 in the exclusive rules of the first edition, 48 in the revised. I think I remember way back when I was setting up the game counting 48, which is an amazing feat. I may just be bad enough with the Germans for us to see something similar, but I don't think it's something that you see that's very common, I wouldn't think, with two competent players, experienced players. But for the Allies to win, they would only need 34 or more, which is still almost 3/4 of the available victory points. So since it's black and white in terms of the outcome, if the Germans hold on to 15 of the 48 victory points at the end of the game, then it's a draw, which is something I tend to like to see for no good reason. It makes me feel better about the playing. So that, I think, means definitely this Essen area, 357, would be almost half of what the Germans would need to get a draw. And there are victory point hexes worth 1 victory point each scattered along the eastern map edge. Back from these hexes back, there's 3 or 4 of them here. And then another 2 and 1 here, for example. There's some 1 or 2 1 victory point hexes scattered about. There's a cluster of 4 over at Rotterdam that the Allies have yet to take. So we might be seeing a draw. I doubt we'll see a German victory. And yeah, I'm hoping it'll be a close one. But I'm a little concerned about this and this situation here and here. So the Allies have their eye on 5 potential targets this combat phase. With 3 air points remaining, they might narrow that down to 3 or 4. For the 2 right shifts, 3 of those 5 are against single units, single full strength units, which makes it a little easier to determine, calculate things. With the stacks, you're technically not supposed to really know or remember what the hidden units are. So we'll see how it works out. Another reason to dominate these zones or to slow down the German units at this point, especially down here along the roads, which is going to make it difficult for us to regroup. And I haven't been updating mid-German player turn, but you get an idea. You can deduce how we've handled things when I do the Allied player update. I've been trying to figure out how long it's taking me to play a turn. I haven't been timing it or anything, but just guessing. The Allied player turn consists of 10 phases, 5 very short phases, and the German player turn of the 5 longer phases only. Movement, combat, exploitation, supply, and reinforcement replacement. I would say I'm a very slow player to begin with, but just counting the play time, which I think also takes longer when you solo a game, because it takes, demands more continuous focus or effort. Of course, social gaming face-to-face, takes time and effort and focus as well for other reasons, in my case, non-gaming related. The social aspect, I think. But anyway, I think I would say probably 10 to 15 minutes per player turn at least. So realistically, 30 minutes per turn. Maybe, that sounds about right. Even if you play twice as fast as I do over the course of 25 turns, it's still going to add up to a lot of time. But I prefer having this set up to chip away at, 2, 3 turns, 4 turns at a time, a little here, a little there, rather than setting up something, spending my time with other stuff that from beginning to end might take the same amount of time as it would to play 3 turns of this, if you know what I mean. Although I have been also playing other games. I play multiple games concurrently, which is probably another reason it takes me a while. So let's see how this works out. I'll update you in the next turn when we enter December. I misspoke when I said 10 phases for the Allied player turn. It's actually 11, but a lot of these, like the invasion placement phase and airdrop phase, are pretty uneventful. especially here towards the end of the game. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that I think I removed the wrong airborne division and probably should have gone for this if it's eligible. Here we are after the Allied half of turn 16, December 1st through the 15th. So we're getting ready to resolve the German half of the turn. Let's see. So the Free French have taken Strasbourg, and during the exploitation phase advanced their stack of armored divisions via the road here and extended a line along these fortifications / victory point hexes. So they've crossed the German border, now are adjacent to the Rhine in the southernmost rough hex here. And we'll see how that works out. We've also destroyed the unsupplied static division that was defending this fortification entry point A hex, which was not easy. We've absorbed replacements in the meantime. Another tough fight was here, just east of Aachen, in a fortification in the forest, or rough, the same ×2 modifier to the defender's strength. And I think it was an A1D1 result. We destroyed the full-strength Panzergrenadier Division defending wetlands across the river just east of Eindhoven, the Eindhoven X, with our British units, and advanced our leg units across the river. And I'm not sure if I mentioned that I think it was the last turn, managed to destroy both units defending Rotterdam and rolled a 1, so Rotterdam this turn, at the beginning of the turn, became functional. The infantry unit that advanced across the river was unsupplied this turn, but now that Rotterdam is functional, it's back in supply, we're just sticking around the area to try to gain those victory points, and then link back up to the rest of the units, or stick on that side of the river, but we would need to send a truck across to extend the supply line from Rotterdam. Turn 17, December 16th through the 31st, 44. Post-Allied player turn. Well, pre-attack HQ unflipping phase. So we resolved 5 attacks this turn. During the combat phase, no overrun combat. Not much of that anymore at this point. Not much happening during the exploitation phase either, except for exploit-capable units moving ever closer towards the front from whatever port they landed at. 4 fairly successful attacks, 1 not so much. I've left the yellow markers on our target hexes so you could see how we've advanced. Not very far, since it's hard to bring trace supply up to units that, exploit capable units that make multi-hex advances too far away from the HQs, especially through the forest and rough terrain. So down here, another successful attack, although I think we did take some damage. Yes, by the Free French, who were able to advance more of their units across the German border to occupy this forest hex after destroying the defending Volksgrenadier Division there. So it's a full stack of Free French infantry units. And here, same story. Another Volksgrenadier Division destroyed, and we've advanced into the target hex. Here we've managed to destroy both units there, static division, Volksgrenadier Division in the fortification in the forest, with the help of one of our 2 air points that we received this turn, just like in the last turn, on a roll of 4 or 5 on 2d6 at the beginning of the turn on the air support table gets you 2. Starting turn 22, March 1st, the same results will give you 3 instead, I think, once the sky's clear on those lower results. And so that was a D2R2. Of course, the units, I think that was 2 total steps in that hex that were both eliminated. We could have made a multi-hex advance to this hex, but again, that would have left those units out of supply with a vulnerable hex site here in open terrain. But now the whole goal was to, surround and cut the supply lines to Aachen, which I suppose was really kind of accomplished here. Aachen will be tough because it's a city hex, a fortified city hex. So that's defender times 3, doubled. Yeah. And up here, another successful joint effort between the US and Commonwealth allies to attack into the wetlands across the river, destroying a lone Volksgrenadier division. However, here the attack was completely repelled with an A2 result on the 3-1 after 1 right shift for ground support. We applied our first loss to one of our British armored divisions that later in the turn absorbed a replacement point, but you could see damage to the British infantry division up top on the left stack. This hex right here is open terrain with a fortification. And it looks like I forgot to restack this when I was messing around. Okay. Yeah, there should be 4 units in that hex. You can see that we've brought this lone British infantry division into the wetlands hex here, being supplied via this Commonwealth HQ from Rotterdam. Decided to keep it on that side of the river. It's already there. It's kind of crowded, congested on this side, to maybe distract this full-strength layer division that's blocking our path across the Rhine into Arnhem via that bridge, which is a +1 on the movement point cost. Otherwise, it would be impassable. We received a Free French Infantry Division in Paris, which could have also started in Tours instead, which is further away along the Loire, and then shipped our U.S. Infantry Division to Antwerp, since we can't to Boulogne-sur-Mer or Rotterdam, and wouldn't want to either way, from the England box from last turn. And received, as usual, our 2 US replacement points and 1 Commonwealth replacement point. And the Germans will continue to receive 3 replacement points per turn through turn 18. And after that it drops to 2 and down to 1 on March 1st and 0 on the April turns. Turn 18, January 1st through the 15th, 1945, post-Allied combat phase. Quite a lot happened since we received a bunch of air points, rolling a 9 on the air support table for 6 air points, spending 1 dominating air zone 4, and the other 5 during our combat phase for 2 right shifts in ground support, including this one here, even though it says shift 1. The game, I think, only comes with 4 that say shift 2. Yeah, so we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks. This went well, this went well, this here went well. They were also the easier attacks, but they went well mainly because of the rolling. These others, especially this up here, awful. This one, we rolled another 3. It wasn't as bad as the last time we did that. We've been rolling consistent 3s, it feels like, up here for the last few turns. 2 right shifts, so we finally managed to do some damage to that Panzer division, but we also took 2 step losses. and the Germans maintained their position in the fortification in the clear. We destroyed a Volksgrenadier division here in the open, advanced some British units forward. Destroyed another one here, regular open terrain, attacking from this fortified, fortification, and went ahead and advanced units, even though we'll see if the Germans will counterattack this position. This is, like I said, fortified, so I'm not too concerned about this hex being targeted. We have inflicted one step loss to the full-strength German infantry division that was here. Looking at this hex a little closer, you see there's a bit of rough, so they benefited from that. And then, of course, this side is a minor river hex side, and we're also attacking from the same side of the river. So A1D1 here. Down here, though, was an A2D1, I believe. So we were up against a full-strength SS Panzer division in the rough, which took a step reduction. And down here, we were originally going for this, but at the last minute switched our target to the reduced Panzer division that was here, even though its defensive strength is one higher than this, and successfully eliminated the unit, even though its fortification at D1 something. And I think we took a step loss as well and advanced across the river, and those units are still supplied from this HQ. 1, 2, 3, 4 from the truck, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In terms of movement down here, the Free French are now all across the German border, making their way up along the Rhine through this rough. And we'll see what happens down here. This French HQ is still within attack supply from this truck, which is linked up to no longer Marseille, but the other ports in the north. One more attack I think I forgot to mention was this here at Aachen. Against 2 defending units, 3 steps, a total defensive strength of 10, halved because they were unsupplied, times 3 for the city, another times 2 on top of that for the fortification, so they were at 30, and even with the 2 right shifts, we got an A2D1 result with this first loss, of course being applied to the strongest attacker and strongest defender. So now we definitely know what's in there, under the unsupplied marker, and we're in no rush to take the hex. We feel pretty confident that we will eventually strengthen numbers and having them completely surrounded, though unnecessarily, probably unwisely. A little bit of overkill with our positions there. As long as we can take the hex by the end of the game, we should be okay. Of course, that ties up units in the meantime, so the sooner the better. Another thing I overlooked was this Free French Infantry Division that was raised in Paris at the end of the last turn. Since it didn't have any effect on the Allied player turn, I went ahead and moved it. Turn 19, January 16th through the 31st, post-Allied movement. We received 5 air points, not bad. Spent 1 dominating air zone 4 again. Same story. It's been the same story for a while now, very similar. We are about to resolve combat, and again plan to go all out with our remaining air points for ground support. The Germans' backs are up against the Rhine, holding on to their dear fortification hexes and clinging to rivers, or perhaps a little bit too long over here. Oops. But, they've been told not to retreat from their positions. No, I'm not certain how things will pan out. It seems pretty predictable how the story will end, but the part that is harder to predict is how the scores will end up. So we'll see what happens. Here we are after the Allied combat phase of turn 19, same turn. And as you can see, things are looking bad for the Germans. They've been looking bad for a while now, but they are now substantially worse. It's very stressful for me to play as the Germans in this game. I am still optimistic about possibly being able to pull off a draw, but it looks less and less likely, of course, with every passing turn. And now I'm thinking, wow, I'm not so sure anymore. So what are we looking at? The British, we have Commonwealth units that have made it across the Rhine. Basically, they rolled an 11 after rolling 3s for so many turns. This was a big surprise. On a D3R3, they knocked out the 3 steps in the fortification, made a multi-hex advance with their exploit-capable units that are still in supply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's that to deal with. Yeah. We have, for a while now, had this situation, the US infantry here reaching the Rhine, but now they've reached the river in 2 other locations, one of which is adjacent to Victory Point Hex with access across the river. Luckily we have a couple of good, strong units that are also fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can make it here, can make it across. Of course, we're paying 1 movement point for the roads instead of 1/2. We have a bunch of units here that will inevitably become unsupplied since this road it connects these 2 hexes, but not these 2. We have a city here worth 3 victory points. Entry point A. Probably leave a unit or 2, but maybe move these units over and then pull these back across the river. There's a road that connects these 2 hexes. These 2 hexes are also connected by a bridge, plus 1 movement point, so 3 movement points. And we don't have to take into account the enemy zone of control, which does not extend into hexes, adjacent hexes that it doesn't have direct access to, and cannot attack that hex either. Down here, the French have pushed even further, destroying the unit that was it a full-strength infantry division in a fortification in the rough. Even so, they managed to destroy the unit in advance, and then the US units advanced through here, across the river. Oh, further in. The river's here. So they're in supply. So from this truck it's 1/2, 2.5, 3, or no, 2.5. There's a road. Oh, 3.5, 4.5. Yeah, so 4.5 to there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to here. So now that we have a bunch of German units here in this pocket that are unsupplied, or would be, unless we can place a friendly unit to negate the enemy zone of control, maybe through here and here, or here and here. Yeah, and then we have 1 remaining step in Aachen. So that is the story. So here's the situation. As we enter turn 20, February 1st through the 15th, just to recap, during the German half of the turn, we were able to conduct a couple of fairly successful attacks, just not attacking enough with the Germans, I know, tactical adeptness. Destroying a US infantry division from this hex, good timing before these stacks became unsupplied, and an armored division from down here, inflicting a step reduction on the other as it retreated. No, it was a D2, so yeah, it was 2 step losses and then a retreat. The results for the attack were bracketed A1s, which, thanks to that rule, meant 0 losses to the Germans. Very happy to see this situation down here. We could have gone, I guess, for this stack as well, but decided against it, because that would have meant leaving, I think, these victory point hexes and the city hexes wide open with not enough units to fill them up, and will make the British attack us instead. They'll have some supply issues. They have issues having suffered heavy losses trying to get through that fortification, but on the other hand, there are some easy victory points that they can pick up on the way. There's also a couple in Netherlands that are still up for grabs, still under German control. One up in Bremen. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Here we are after the Allied combat phase, still turn 20, February 1st or the 15th, 1945, and most likely the last turn that I'll be covering before I call it a night and pack up the game. I know, so close to the finish line, 5.5 more turns left, but that would probably take me at least a couple of hours, being a slow player, and that's a couple of hours that I don't have tonight, and the very unrealistic goal is to try to finish the campaign game over the weekend, and it's technically 1/4 past the weekend. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty comfortable, though, now conceding as the Germans, especially after what's happened this turn, with the Free French reaching the Rhine here and the US pushing here as well, leaving these units inevitably out of supply come the end of the turn. I don't think there's much they can do to change the situation. We have more US units here. We received 1 air point as the Allies and used that to take, what is this, Cologne, the city, 3 victory point hex. I should check, but I don't want to make them scatter everything. This German unit is doing a remarkable job of, fending off these attacks, and that's another victory point hex, but it's just a matter of time. Same goes for this hex, it's yet to be attacked, but we were busy repositioning ourselves as the Allies here in the north and our HQs and trucks to try to bring supply over the river. We still have 4 emergency attacks as the Allies. The Germans have 1. I haven't forgotten about them. They were going to be used towards the end of the game in the last 2-3 turns. But even if the Germans do manage to hold on to these Essen-Dusseldorf city VP hexes and their supply lines back to the eastern map edge and those victory point hexes, I don't think it's quite enough to pull off a draw. So that's how the story goes. Now I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the probably hours of footage that I've been sitting on. And I think I'm just going to throw it into one very long video and upload everything together instead of 500 10-minute videos flooding your feeds. I don't know which is worse, but hopefully one very long video is not as bad, since I think there's a way you can bookmark where you are and come back to it and pick up where you left off if you're logged in or something. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this learning game full of mistakes of the Mighty Endeavor First Edition.